Our first panelist today is Dr. Andrea Briceño. She is an economist and public policy scholar whose career spans academic research, applied policy design, and international development across the United States and Latin America. She holds a Ph.D. in public administration and public affairs with focus on public policy analysis from Virginia Tech, as well as a master's degree from Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs. And she earlier completed her bachelor's and master's degrees in economics in her home country of Colombia. So her cross-sector work includes collaborations with the Organization of American States and Inter-American Development Bank, where she contributed to projects on international or institutional reform, social inclusion, and governance. Her research examines administrative burdens, equity, and how public institutions shape people's everyday experiences with the state. So please welcome Dr. Andrea. You want to wave? And next up, we have Dr. Jessica Hernandez, who is a globally recognized Indigenous scientist, climate justice leader, and best-selling author whose work bridges Indigenous science with Western environmental research. She's the author of Fresh Banana Leaves, which came out in 2022, and more recently, Growing Papaya Trees in 2025. She holds a PhD in environmental and forest sciences, as well as dual master's degrees in marine affairs and environmental science from the University of Washington. She is also the founder of Earth Daughters, an Indigenous-led nonprofit supporting climate resilience across the Americas, and she serves as a senior consultant at G3I Enterprises, where she helps integrate Indigenous knowledge and sustainability and STEM initiatives. So please welcome Dr. Jessica. Oh, you can clap louder. And I'm very sorry to let you know Dr. Sarah Griffiths could not be here today. She was stranded on the side of the road with a flat tire, but if things settle for her today, she will be joining us. She has a fascinating background where she went on to Harvard's Divinity School and received a PhD also from Harvard in ancient religion. She was a professor in the humanities and religious studies, and then transitioned to the tech sector. So she is someone, though, if you ever do want to hear more from her, she is available through another degree, and she also just promised me if she can't get in today that she's going to jump on something else that we'll put on YouTube later on. But very pleased also to have a last-minute addition coming from, I believe, a campground. Dr. Taylor Brown is a physician, researcher, and educator whose work spans medicine, public health, and biomedical sciences. She earned her Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Sciences from Central Michigan University, followed by a Master of Health Sciences and a MD from Meharry Medical College. She's also completed research fellowships at the Yale School of Public Health and Harvard Medical School, and has global public health experience spanning more than 20 countries. So please welcome Dr. Taylor. I'm gonna turn that off here. So this panel is for you all, so I want to open it up to questions that you have.
I guess my first question is, when did you know you wanted to pursue your PhD, and how did you find your niche?
So if you didn't hear that, the question is, when did you know you wanted to pursue your PhD or MD in Taylor's case, and how did you find your niche? Andrea, do you want to go first?
Yes. Well, I think that in my case, like Dr. Kelly mentioned, I come from Colombia, and after I graduated from economics, I started working with the Colombian government and the Bogota government, and I started working with vulnerable populations in all the analysis of public policies for them, right? But at that time, I just had my undergraduate. But I think that this work with the public sector and with communities inspired me a lot to pursue a graduate study in public policy. I knew that I I am passionate about economics and all the economics analysis, but I wanted to combine that for some kind of government sector. So I pursue my master in public policy and government in partnership with Columbia University, actually in New York. And I think that in my personal story was my case. I think that my professional experience after my undergraduate studies shape my path to the graduate studies. And after my master, I am also very passionate about research and teaching. When I was in Colombia, I started doing my master. I started like teaching to undergraduate students in different universities, economics and some public policy classes. And in that moment, I knew that I wanted to pursue my PhD, but I wanted to do my PhD in another language. No, I had clear I don't want like to pursue a PhD in my country and speaking Spanish. No, it was kind of my own challenge. No, that I wanted to study abroad. So in that moment, I decided to come to the US to pursue my PhD in public administration and policy. Well, before of that, I did an internship with Organization of American States, but I think that it was my path and how it shapes like my motivation to pursue my graduate studies and my PhD finally.
Thank you. Taylor, Jessica? Oh, Taylor?
Yes. So originally, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I originally didn't know I wanted to go into medicine right off the bat in undergrad. I originally actually was in the McNair's program, if you're familiar, which is basically for underrepresented students interested in getting a PhD, providing them with mentorship throughout my undergrad experience. So then I was thinking about doing MD and PhD. But then, as we kind of learned today, it was either do I want to really hone in on one topic or do more broad research, which I thought being able to do more broad research kind of fit my personality and what I want to do in medicine more specifically. And then when I graduated, I actually took 2 gap years. And during that time, I was able to get more information with public health and policies, as well as working with like mentorships to see like their everyday like schedules. Like, do I want to continue the MD route or do I want to do PhD? Because when you get to have mentors and see what they do every day, I think that's really the best way to see, can I envision myself doing this, and or what do I want my career to look like? So I would say mine's came 2 years after undergrad, during that gap year period before I applied to medical school.
Thank you, everyone. So for me, I went to a master's program that's more professional. So the Master's of Marine Affairs kind of defines you and kind of trains you to go into, any environmental agency, especially in the policy realm. But then one of the things that I did is that I applied to the National Science Foundation Graduate Fellowship and I received it. And as a result, I kind of defined the research project that I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to do research or do community work based on my upbringing and working with indigenous communities. So I kind of bridged that through that research, and funding was the reason why I was able to do kind of like the niche area where I decided to, do restoration from an indigenous.
Great, thank you. And I have to apologize. I had also planned that you would do some introductions, but I think that was actually a nice introduction. But I want to give each of the speakers a chance to introduce themselves more fully. Anything else that you want to talk about your educational and research path, and what it is that you do now in your work?
I can start. So my name is Taylor Brown. I'm originally from Michigan. I did my undergrad at Central Michigan University, and then a master's at Meharry Medical College, as well as a doctoral medical degree there as well. But I also have worked at Yale Department of Public Health, where I did my public policy training. And then for the last 10 months, I've been working at Harvard in the endocrine department doing research there. I would say now, as a physician, my research really focuses more on health accessibility and equity, as well as like medical education and ways to make medical training for residents and medical students more equitable as well as more accessible. And then also with like global health tied in there as well. So going back to what I was saying of liking to do a lot of different things instead of kind of like specializing in one thing. I know someone in the back, they had mentioned liver research, which I also had did in Stanford, working on like isthmus protein and liver and not liver enzymes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So as a physician, being able to like kind of dabble there. And I know on the red you mentioned like national parks. I'm actually in Yellowstone right now, so that's really cool too. I've been like learning a lot of information and how like research is so important here. And like I didn't know that like they don't salt the roads because it's an environmental issue and like different research that they've done in order to like make the environment better. So that's very cool.
Andrea or Jessica, do you want to give an extended overview of your work? Or Andrea, I see you're unmuted.
Yeah, sure. Well, again, my name is Andrea Briceño. I am originally from Bogota, Colombia. I grew up in Bogota. I did my undergraduate in economics. I started working with the government of Bogota with different vulnerable populations, no low-income families, single mothers, people with disabilities, indigenous. And it inspired me a lot to pursue my master's degree in public policy and government. I was involved in both in the public sector and in academia. After that, I immigrated to the US. I started with the Organization of American States, and I pursued my PhD in public administration and public affairs at Virginia Tech. And after that, I completed my postdoc. It was very interesting when Kelly mentioned about this academic career because I think that actually was kind of my case. Like in the beginning, I was thinking about I will pursue an academic career, but after that, I changed my mind and I decided to transition to the more like public sector consulting, more applied research, and it is what I have been doing now. My research has focused on exploring the barriers that people face when they look for government services in different policy domains. So let's say when a person wants to apply for Medicaid, for SNAP, for a driver license, I mean, in different policy domains, what are the learning costs that this person experience, the compliance costs, what kind of paperwork or documentation could be overwhelming, what kind of psychological costs a person faces, right? Because sometimes I think that we think that when people apply for government services, they just face financial barriers, no, especially low-income individuals. But this kind of learning, compliance, and psychological costs are really subtle. And what my research has found is that they really prevent people from accessing public benefits from what they are entitled. So yes, it has been like my research. You're welcome to read my publications if you are interested. I also combine in my research both quantitative and qualitative methods. No, since my background is in economics, so I love all these inferential statistics, inferential analysis, modeling, but I also love, I think that the data doesn't tell you the whole story, so I love to conduct interviews and surveys and focus groups with people know that are part of my target research. Yes, I think that this is basically, I have been teaching at Virginia Tech research methods at the graduate level for master and PhD students in public and international affairs.
Thank you. And just to plug that, Dr. Andrea is going to have a R for Beginners series going up on YouTube soon. So,
Yes, for those interested, I teach Stata, R, and Python. and I start from scratch. Even my students at the graduate level, they don't have economics or math backgrounds, and so I have this experience, to teach if in any moment you may be interested.
And Dr. Jessica, and I see your books, or at least one of your books behind you there, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your current projects.
Yes, so I'm actually from Los Angeles, so I actually am from South Central LA. I actually went to school in UC Berkeley because I didn't want to stay close to home, so it's very ironic that I'm at UCLA right now. But I took a 2 year kind of gap also where I did research on the BP oil spill research in Louisiana when that took place, and then after that I came to graduate school. And once I did my postdoc in climate science and physics, I realized that I didn't want to become a full-time professor. I wanted to do more global advocacy and work for an NGO. So I went to the UN and an NGO to do work. And then I decided to establish my own nonprofit where I also serve as the director of Indigenous Science and Research. So a lot of the things that I'm able to do now is define research from a community lens where it's not dictated by the academy or university, where I am the indigenous communities are actually the lead researchers, not the research subjects or our areas of expertise. And I think that that is one of the privileges that I have, having this indigenous-led organization where I conduct research. And yes, I'm also an author. I publish a lot on indigenous science and indigenous ways of knowing through the Western science lens.
Thank you. And again, opening it for questions. Yeah.
I was going to actually ask about the trajectory of yours as paths. I noticed that I think a majority of you guys took gap years, and I was wondering how those gap years were like, if it was intentional to do. I think, Dr. Hernandez, you're specifically talking about taking a 2-year gap year. If the 2 years was an intentional choice, and how, I guess, what kind of led you through the gap year and then furthering your guys' education? What was that like?
Were you able to hear that on, the thinking about gap years?
Yeah, so for me, I was actually really tired after I graduated from my undergraduate. So I think that's also important to center how you're feeling because graduate school, you have to hit the ground running. It's not as slow paced as it is in undergraduate, even though sometimes we feel like it's fast paced in undergraduate, but going into graduate school is really fast paced where you're constantly writing, reading, like, graduate students are always carrying stacks of books because you're, required to read a lot. And I think that 2 year gap year was just based on my interest at that time. So I was able to do research on the oil spill and live in Louisiana also. And that also allowed me to, in a way, and somebody asked that question, right, define what kind of research I wanted to do for graduate school, because that's very hard to do when you have a lot of opportunities. So that's like just 2 years to kind of decide and finalize the areas of expertise that I wanted to enter for graduate school. Thank you for your question.
And going off of that, mines were also intentional. So I originally started because no matter if I was doing the MD or PhD route, people said you're going to be studying for 4 to 6 years. So I wanted to be able to do things that I might not have time. So during that time, I had a mentor who really helped me pursue my global health interests as well as like my public policy. So during that time, I went to over 20 countries and really was able to immerse myself as well into those other interests, as well as working at like Cycle Bar and spending time with my family. So I think it's important to know that like your professional trajectory doesn't necessarily have to be linear and it's not a one size fits all for anyone. Like your story and your track is however you want it. And it's okay to kind of like normalize your own process. Like you don't have to go from point A to B to C because just like Dr. Hernandez, like I was also a little burnt out and tired. And then to jump into another professional degree that's also more work and more intentional. So I wanted to make sure I was like going in with my best foot forward, whatever trajectory or professional degree that I chose.
And Dr. Andrea, I know you took a gap, a family-related gap. I don't know if you've taken another gap in your educational path.
Yes, I mean actually it's like the saying. I after I graduated from my bachelor, it was intentional to wait. Like I think that after 3 years I start my master's degree, and actually when I came to the US after my internship, I decided I had two boys, so I decided to step away from academia and work, and I took like a full-time job with my kids during almost 4 years. I think that it was a decision that many people criticized, no, in that moment. No, you go like to the US, no, you are like wasting your time, but it was really a personal decision. I wanted to take care of them until they went to the kindergarten. And of course, after that, I started my PhD, and it was really challenging because my kids were still little. They were 3 and 4 years when I was starting my PhD. So it was kind of no combining these two paths, but it was intentional. It was something, and I really don't regret about it. I think that it was the best decision.
Great question. Other questions?
Do you have any tips for first-time researchers?
And you're our first year, right? Yeah. So a first year who hasn't yet started undergrad, or have you done any? Sometimes have you done research yet?
Yeah.
Oh, you're already getting involved in research, but still early stages. What are your tips?
I would say a couple. The first one is to have a good mentor. I think with anything, professional degrees, pathways, research, it's good to have a good mentor who like will invest in you, who you can like piggyback off questions and approaches, as well as like being open-minded. Because I remember when I was an undergrad and I did bench research at the time, but like things necessarily do not go as planned a lot of the times, and you have to redo trials and redo maybe even asking different questions. So being able to have that flexibility of being open-minded, not being too hard on yourselves, and having a good mentor and support, I would say, are my two biggest ones.
Thank you.
Great tips. Any others?
Well, I will say that depending on your research interest, I will suggest that you start like exploring what has been written regarding your topic. Know that you start like exploring what kind of research or empirical work you can find it, because I think that the more you know about what you want to explore or investigate, I think that you will have more clarity about what is like the research path that you want to follow, know what you are really passionate about, what is the gap that you want like to fill, when you are doing your research. So I will suggest, I agree with the mentorship, but I also think that by your own, try like to start investigating, what kind of findings, studies, empirical work, etc. you can find related to your topic.
Thank you.
I will also say to find a research program that will give you a stipend to do research, or to find a way to get credits or units for the research project that you're doing, because it's like additional work that you have to, in a way, balance aside from your core classes or the classes that you're taking. And when you do find that, program, like when I was an undergraduate, I was in the NSF LSAM, which pays you to do research. Just start, knocking at people's doors in the case, like asking professors that you're taking classes whether they're accepting a research fellow or an undergraduate research assistant. And usually in that case, most of the time you end up working with their graduate students. So, build that great rapport with the graduate students as you're doing the research, ask them questions. Like, don't just do the work without, asking questions, so that you can actually find what you're actually passionate about within that topic, and find your niche eventually as time goes by.
Thank you.
And I can add to that too, knowing the UCLA context, let everybody know that you're interested in research, because sometimes there are opportunities, including, these funding opportunities that, land in some professor's lap on Tuesday and they need to bring someone in next Monday. So when they know that you're interested in research, that's incredibly valuable. And to the point about trying to get some funding for it, so, you don't have to worry about taking on extra jobs on the side, you're getting paid to do research. look at programs like Mellon, McNair, Taylor here, McNair, a few other, and other degree mentors are McNair fellows. Also, the undergraduate research scholars, undergraduate research fellows program, go to those undergraduate research centers and they can direct you to various programs that offer funding, because if you're going to do some research, you should try to get some money for it when you can. Other questions? I might ask a question from my list. Let's see. How about a little bit of a what's a day in your life like, and thinking about work-life balance in your day-to-day? I think everyone here has had a little bit of a mix of traditional and non-traditional research careers, if you can speak to that.
Yeah, so I think it depends on the rotation and schedule that I am on. So for the last 10 months, what I mentioned, it's been like a hybrid. So I do 2 to 3 days in the hospital, and then 2 to 3 days are like literature reviews, manuscript writing, grant writing. So it kind of just depends on what's going on. And the sense of work-life balance, I think now, if you haven't gotten it down yet, of being intentional with your time and making a schedule and having things planned. I think we all mentioned like our gap years were intentional, because even during that time, it's important to kind of know, well, what's the ideal plan, or what do we think we're going to do moving forward, instead of kind of just going with the flow. So having something like planned is similar to like work-life balance of like, when am I going to see my family? When am I going to finish writing this manuscript? What does my schedule look like? So just making sure things are like planned is how I try to keep a work-life balance.
So for me, it used to be a little bit more traditional, but now since I started doing international work, my work-life balance, I would say my schedule is all over the place, because sometimes you have to get meetings in England time or German time, like CET time. But I think it's like Dr. Brown was saying, like making sure that you do a schedule, because you do want to have time for your family. Like work is always going to be there, and you can continue working for 24 hours if you put yourself into that. But I think it's important to make sure that you also have fun. And also with everything going on in today's society, especially in the United States, it's also important to have some time so that you can revitalize yourself, especially with all the news that are sometimes, a little bit hard to consume, especially if you're on social media. Like there's always something terrible happening. And I think it's important to have the work-life balance, or in this case, full life balance, and making sure that you also hang out and have time for your hobbies that are not necessarily just, secluded to working, reading, or doing your college.
I agree with Dr. Brown and Dr. Hernandez. I think that for me, having a schedule helps a lot. I am a very structured person, and it depends also on the amount of projects that I have, the deadlines. So I try like to follow my schedule, know what kind of priorities I have, know what projects are more important or demand my attention. But I also try to have like a balance, to spend time with my kids. I don't have my family here, so it's kind of challenging. So I try like to find time with my friends, with the people around. I like to do some kind of personal activities, workout or playing piano, something like that. But I have found that I am more productive, and I think that when I spend time, for myself.
And if I can add, something that has helped like ground me is the fact that like work and school will always be there. So like being able to like have time for yourself, even if it's a 15-minute walk, or if you like meditation or talking to your friends or your family, whatever it is, make sure you do those things and spend time with the people that you care about and the activities that you like doing. Because again, school and the other things will be there as much as you let it.
Yes. I also, well, I would like add that I have learned like you should like set boundaries. Sometimes when you are in academic or in consulting, you try like to work like 24/7, right? I respond emails all the time. And when you have students, and sometimes I think that it's necessary that you set boundaries. No, in this time I don't respond emails. And sorry, I had to say no. No, my schedule is this, because if not, really, you are not going like to be again productive and trying like to give grace and compassion to yourself.
Other questions?
What made you gravitate towards your research?
What made you gravitate towards your research? And I think there's a bit of a personal story for all of you. There's a little bit of that research is me search. Have you heard that before?
Well,
I can go.
oh,
Go ahead.
go. No, go ahead.
Okay, who's going? Okay, Taylor?
Okay, sorry, you're unmuted, so I didn't want to step. But I would say definitely personal as well. I am the first physician in my family, so being able to do like research that also helps people who might come from marginalized groups or underrepresented groups was something that's important to me because I lived those experiences, and not having the direct pathway or what I thought was mentorship or accessibility in order to help people that come under me. So definitely a little personal experience has influenced my research.
Yes, I am on the same boat. I think that my experience as immigrant in the US inspired me to pursue my research path. So when I start here, like navigating the immigration system and applying for some programs, etc., but also when I start interacting with immigrants and refugees communities, and I have seen, right, I had witnessed all the paperwork, the information, the documentation that they must meet to access public benefits. I think that it inspired me. I started to see, oh my God, it is a lot, and even though they are entitled, they cannot benefit, from something. So I will say that my personal experience as immigrant, navigating the immigration system and going with my visas, and recently my residency has been really challenging. The life of people around me.
Yeah, right now the research that I'm doing is kind of defined by the indigenous communities that we work with. So right now, for instance, we're doing lake restoration, we're doing biodiversity mapping. So I think that given the communities that I work with the autonomy to decide what research they want to do, they're kind of taking me all over many different places and many realms. And I think that that's the beauty about doing environmental sciences, right? Where it's like a broad um discipline that allows you to do research in many aspects. And yeah, that's my research right now in terms of like my research.
Just an aside, it's fascinating. I think all of you in some way have done some community-driven research and kind of made a point that, sometimes the institutions aren't necessarily asking some of the questions that are relevant to the communities that are impacted by the research. But any other questions? We have a few more minutes. Yeah.
I know you guys have a wide field of research you guys have done, but what is like one challenge you have faced that like really like challenged you?
To get that question about if you could speak to at least one challenge that you faced. Oh, a challenge that has really pushed you. So thank you. I think that's a good, we have quite a resilient group here. So I think if you can speak to challenges that really pushed you. Sorry, Andrea, to cut you off. Does that?
A challenge has pushed me. Well, I think that maybe in my case, my personal journey, like combining raising my kids by my own and doing research and completing my PhD was really something that motivated me. Actually, I completed my PhD in 4 years, and I was like this kind of focused person, like I needed to get done with my classes and my dissertation, and I wanted to publish actually my dissertation chapters, which I did it. But I think that my kids were the key, I think that I knew that I needed like to overcome a lot of things, that I couldn't stay there. I think that in my personal experience, maybe my kids, not raising them alone in the US was really like a trigger in my case. Yes, I will say that. And I think that doing my research, I think that when I start, well, it's something that happened to me. I was like, well, I don't speak English fluently. No, I have like these language barriers. And I think that in the beginning, it was like a kind of challenge for me. I am not able to do research, no academically write like an English speaker does. I am not able like to teach classes at the graduate level. But I think that this kind of language barrier, like in that moment, actually motivated me, to improve my English skills, to prepare my classes, to be more, I would say, rigorous in my research papers. No, when I submitted. No, actually, this kind of language barrier was kind of again like a trigger, like a kind of a factor that influenced me like to work harder, no, to be able to publish, to teach at the graduate level. Well, and actually, I have done that well. No, I still have like this kind of self-aware about that, but I think that in my case was really a motivation.
I think for mine would be like the perceived notion that some people don't see value in your research. And with that, like funding can also go up and down. And I think why that's challenging is because, especially for research that's being very personal and that you've seen communities impacted by your research, that it's almost kind of like a knock on the hand of, okay, you don't see what I'm seeing as well. So I think that's a constant thing that I'm overcoming of just trying to showcase that like certain communities and certain research is important and it is valuable, not just for those communities, but when those communities do better, everyone as a whole also does better, no matter what background, ethnicity, religion, etc. And I think that continues to motivate me, especially when I see people who identify or something that I have shown or research that I have put out there. They're like, wow, like that really helped me get to where I was going and it's helped my family. And now my sister's going to college or whatever the case is. So I think even if you come to those hurdles or you have like roadblocks of like remembering your why, and you're already doing a great question of like asking questions, like that's the first step in research, right? Is asking questions. So you're honestly 80% there. So continuing to do that and like not being afraid to ask those questions, even if you're in a room where you feel like it might not be received, but you're planting seeds, which is important. So you never know how that'll look down the line. So continue to do that. Remember your why, and it's all going to work itself out.
Thank you.
When I think of challenges, I think of like educational disparities, and that's something that I used to read a lot in high school. But going to school in South Central Los Angeles and then going to Berkeley, I remember sitting in my chemistry 101 class, and I was like so lost because the chemistry class that I had taken in high school wasn't necessarily something that had prepared me for some of the topics that were being taught in the first day of class. And I think that the challenges were, educational disparities or inequities that we often read, especially in high school, but then living through those and going back to scheduling, right? The office hours became a part of my schedule because I needed to catch up to my peers who probably had a better educational opportunity. Being the first one in my family to go to college, there wasn't necessarily something that I could talk to my parents about because they wouldn't understand, right? My mom would just be like, "Oh, just study more." Like that was like as easy as people make it sound, but it was just catching up and taking these weaver classes that are often known to be like weaving students, especially students of color, out of STEM. It was like the challenges that I had to face as an undergrad at when I was UC Berkeley.
Thank you.
All right, so do you have any other questions?
No, I'm all good.
Thank you. Do you have any questions here?
No, I pretty much have answered everything I was wondering. So.
Awesome. Well, I do. If we can, maybe close things out with a question on, advice you would have for students who, because we're here featured during UCLA's Undergraduate Research Week. Specifically students who are undergraduates. They're thinking about, should I get a PhD? What is that, looking like these days? What are the careers looking like? If I'm maybe considering going a route like one of you have taken into some of these non-traditional routes? How do I approach that in getting into graduate school? I think there are a lot of questions that students have on their minds, especially right now at this moment, and curious to hear your advice.
I could start. I'd say first, coming to events like this is really beneficial because you're able to like network. So not only are you meeting colleagues who are kind of like in your same realm, like you're a freshman, someone earlier was a senior, so you can kind of like see their pathway and like ask questions that way, as well as people who have PhDs, have MDs, and being able to get their perspective and again get mentorship, but also like ask questions and really get a personal experience of like how their route has gone and kind of tailor it to what you might see yourself doing. And then I also feel like when you network, it's like you just broaden your perspective of like opportunities that you might not have known existed. And now you're like, do I want to do that? Or do I want to do something different? Or can I combine the two? So that would be my first one. And then my second one, I think, which I kind of already mentioned, of like being open minded, because sometimes it's a lot of pressure of like, okay, I need to have everything figured out right now. But you can just like extend grace and it's okay of like learning as you go with some type of plan, but knowing that it's okay if things, don't go exactly how they might look. Because if you would have talked to me my freshman year of undergrad, I would have said, I'm going straight through. I'm not taking any gaps. I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z, and I'm doing something not completely different, but it wasn't exactly what I thought, which is okay because it ended up being just what I needed. So those would be mine.
So for me, as you're all gonna like do research, one of the things that you're gonna be asked is to present your research at conferences. So when you attend those conferences, make sure you network. It's easier, right, to hang out with your friends because you want to have some fun time, but also network with professors and meet other graduate students or professionals because they always have booths and stuff where you can learn more about their organization, corporation, business, or university, and make sure you take advantage of those conferences and even if you're shy, like I used to be, just ask them questions, get their business cards, and follow up with an email if that's easier for you. But keep those networks, active because one day you're going to be probably doing research with them for your graduate school. So conferences is a great way to dive into network.
I think that I agree with Dr. Brown and Dr. Hernandez. I think the network, attending conferences, this kind of events, being surrounded by professors, mentors, I will say that the same. And also, it's my personal advice when you get like your undergraduate studies. I always advise you can like take a time like working like in your field. I think that it gives you like a better perspective of if you want to pursue a graduate study, if you want like a master, a PhD, etc. I mean, to me, this kind of professional experience a little bit is important. No, at least it was important for me, and I have seen that my former students who have been very successful in their academic careers, they took like a gap, well, a kind of working time for themselves, no, instead of going like straight to a master or a PhD career.
Yeah, great advice, all. I want to thank you all. I know there's been a lot going on today around campus, so thank you for attending. Thank you to our panelists today. I will be sharing this on the Another Degree's YouTube later on, so if you want to revisit anything from this talk.
Thank you so much, panelists. I learned a great deal from all of you. Really appreciate your time and all your wisdom. So thank you so much.
Thank you
all.
Thank
That
you.
was
Thanks for
great.
having me. Bye.